ADA. Before I start talking about ADA, I will give you a brief summary of what I'm going to talk today. So I will explain you who we are, because if you go to our website, it gives a very corporate image, which is not. So I want to clear that first. I will explain what we did, what ADA is. Then I will talk about why we did it, and how we use historic project data. And I think this will take more time than the others. I will skip the first three very quickly. And lastly, if you will build an AI product, what are the key takeaways, the learned lessons we had? So that will be the agenda. Let's start with who we are. We are only 3 people. We are not a massive consultancy group, and we are working on ADA together. I'm Can. Fatih is taller than me, so this resembles the reality a bit. Alice is here with us. So we are 3 people. By looking at our use case studies in our websites and our clients, usually there's a misunderstanding that it's a big corporate company. It's not. We're only 3 people. And we do everything. So they ask me, what do you do? I do software development. I do agile transformation in enterprise companies. I do project management in the company. I do HR recruitment. I recruited Alice. So we all do everything. So Alice thought she would be working on marketing, but now she's also doing everything. And what did we do? We built an artificial intelligence and machine learning powered Agile Coach. So I want to understand your knowledge around Agile. So can I ask, how many of you have heard about user story? Can I see your hands? Awesome, great. So it will be a lot easier now for me. So we've built an Agile Coach that will track the actions taken within the team and then come up with some metrics. But these metrics are metrics that tools like JIRA cannot measure. And we have identified 11 criteria that we can measure. These are things like stakeholder contribution, product owner collaboration, development team collaboration within each other, user story quality, estimation quality. So these are the criteria we are assessing. And we are creating this kind of a report at the end of the sprint. And if we see any outliers, then ADA suggests some solutions to fix those. So if we see, I mean not we, ADA, if ADA sees that the stakeholder involvement is very low and it can find the reasons why, then it can suggest you how to fix that as well. Because just showing the metrics isn't enough. We try to automate as much as we can that an actual Agile Coach does. Agile Coach doesn't give you reports and metrics, but actually they give you advice and suggestions. So it doesn't only give you suggestions to fix things, because an Agile Coach also celebrates things when they go well. So when ADA spots things that go very well, for example, it spots that product owner is collaborating very well with the team and there is a good harmony in that collaboration, it is suggesting the team to celebrate that. So you should thank to your product owner for creating that and also celebrate it together. So that's what ADA is. And why did we build ADA? I said our main business is digital transformation and agile transformation. When we do agile transformation with clients, they say things like, we have 32 teams, but we have a budget only for one person. Can you manage all that agile transformation, train them, coach them, and also monitor them, like attend to their planning meetings, however they are working, which framework, whatever framework they are using, monitor them and also improve them. It's of course impossible. But as a small consultancy company, we never say no. We say, okay, let's start with one, and then you will see what we are doing. Then you can assess how many teams we can work with. Because after seeing how closely we work with the teams, then they see what an agile coach does, and they understand that it's not possible for one person. But this doesn't change that they don't have the budget. So they still don't have the budget. This is a problem that needs to be solved. So this is one of the reasons we thought we need to find smart ways to reduce the workload on a Scrum Master or on an Agile Delivery Manager or an Agile Coach. So it is called different in every organization. But whoever is leading this big project or the team needs a smart way to manage this agile transformation and help the teams to increase their agility. And also, some of the managers started asking things like, what should I track as KPI with these agile teams? Because they have changed their ways of working and I'm not getting any reports anymore. I don't have milestones anymore, so I was tracking the milestones before. What should I track? So this was another thing. So they want something to track. They want some metrics. But they also want these metrics to be related with agility. Another thing which is very interesting is that they are not very comfortable with autonomous self-organizing teams. They feel like they are disconnected and there might be something going really wrong and they might fail and they don't have any clue if it is going well or if it is going to fail. So they feel like they will become aware after they fail, not at the beginning of the process. So again, they need some confirmation of how things are going. And after these are the reasons that drove us into working on this solution. We thought, okay, we can find a solution for this, and if we can make it work, then it will solve a real problem. That's why we started it. Now let's talk about how we use the project data, the historic project data. We are currently only integrated to JIRA. Can I again see the hands? Who has used JIRA before? Great, this is a great audience. So we are only integrated to JIRA mainly because we are only 3 people, we are limited in time, and JIRA is the most popular tool for software development teams. We want to integrate with Microsoft as well, but currently we don't have the bandwidth for it, and also their APIs are a lot more difficult to connect to compared to JIRA. So we are working with only JIRA right now. And this is a screenshot from JIRA. We take the sprint data and the backlog data and continuously monitor what's going on in there. So this means the comments being put, the assignees, the reporter, the structure of the user story. So we analyze all this data. Whatever is in JIRA, we are analyzing it. And at the end of every sprint, we are creating that report in our dashboard. When we say the JIRA API, I thought you might not have seen it before, so I wanted to get a screenshot of it. So the API that I'm talking about is returning things like this. I think I should have also taken the scroll, because it's scrolling down a long way down when you make a request. So that's the API response that we are analyzing. We are currently getting 42 features So I'm saying features because this is a data community, so we use features. But for example, if you are a database admin, you would say 42 fields. If you're a software developer, you would say like 42 variables. In summary, we have 42 things to use in our machine learning. These are things like the priority of the user story, or how many assignments it had throughout this history, and who are these people, or the comments written on it. These are all the features that we are assessing. But very interestingly, half of it is useless right now. So when we started integrating with the APIs, we said we should use all this data, we should drive it all into our algorithm. But after we started working with 2 clients, we have 2 beta users. Actually, we have 3. One also joined yesterday. But our 2 partners that we started with, one from FMCG, one from telco, for example, they didn't use the priority field, which we thought it would be very important, but they just kept its default value, which is medium. So when we started running our algorithms, of course they didn't work because all the user stories were medium priority. So currently we are not using half of it. You might say, why are you still getting them? Because every time we add a client, we see a different usage of JIRA. So a feature that might not make sense now for these clients might be very, very valuable for the next client, and this is the main difficulty for us right now that we need to sort out, because every time we onboard a new client, rather than using our existing algorithms, we have to study their data and come up with a new one. We are hoping that after having a certain number of clients, this will end and we will have some common used models, but maybe because the client number is very low, currently every client we are adding is bringing in a lot of onboarding effort on us. We are using supervised learning, so it's not unsupervised. We have an Agile Coach network. So we are sending them some data and they are rating that data according to some criteria. And one of these Agile coaches is me. And we are also sending some surveys. ADA is scanning the people involved in a user story or in a sprint and finds some key stakeholders that should be surveyed for that specific user story. And we are asking a few questions to these people. How would you rate this and that? And these 2 becomes our labels, which will make our training set. And another thing that I want to share with you, by the way, I'm here to share all the knowledge we have and learned lessons. Don't see this as a product presentation. That's why I'm talking about what happened with clients so much. We planned the supervised learning, this labeling exercise would go on only for 2 sprints. And then we said, yeah, we will put that manual effort in, send these rating emails, but we think after 2 sprints, we won't need those anymore. It didn't happen. So even after 2 sprints, we realized that in order to give like 100% accurate, not 100% accurate, but 90% accurate reports, we still needed some manual labeling. So that's our immediate target now, to reduce that manual labor, because it is costing us a lot right now. The sooner we stop labeling and the system provide that report without any supervised learning, the easier it will be for us. It is getting a lot better. After every sprint, we are sending out less emails, but we overpromised to our first 2 clients. We said it will be 2 sprints and then you won't receive any emails. And if you are building an AI tool, don't overpromise this, because when you face with real client data, your whole world will go upside down. Things won't go as planned. You can say we will, in our case, I should have said we will send emails until the quality of the reports goes to 90% without any supervised learning. And I think what will happen, what I can see from the trend, is that it will take at least 2-3 months for the machine to be able to produce these reports without any labeling support. And some criteria we have, they don't need any kind of supervised learning, but we have 11 criteria, like 8 of them, we can cover them after 2 sprints without any labeling, but 3 of them are the challenging ones. So we will have to decide whether we will remove those 3 criteria or still work on it, push more, and I think we will do the latter. We have started using Python, but then we now switched to AWS, so we moved all.
What is it the coaches are actually looking at? So what are these features? Do you have an example of what is an easy feature to parse, what's a hard feature to parse?
So what we send them is a set of, for example, how many times the story was assigned to some users. So we don't share any names because I'll come to that, privacy is very important. But we say, okay, this user story has been assigned to 2 people back and forth 8 times during the sprint. This is an indicator. So because they know what we are doing and they know what they are trying to assess, they look at this data, this kind of data, and then they realize they give some ratings. And if they can't, they just don't. If they can't think of any metric for a criteria, they just leave it.
That's because you know already every time there is such a back and forth, it's a good thing or bad thing.
This is the expertise, domain expertise, exactly. For example, I can tell you if it is only 2 people assigning each other this, it is not good. It means the team lacks real collaboration. So if you haven't worked with these teams before, what this means is they are just handing the ball over to each other. So this kind of things. But things like, for example, sometimes they assign something to a stakeholder. Then the stakeholder puts some input, and after they get input, they progress it, and I see that as positive, because they've included the stakeholder and the stakeholder contributed. So these are the things they look at. And by the way, we will have enough time for questions at the end. How are we doing with time?
You got 2 minutes?
Yeah, okay. We've moved all our platform to AWS. We are using EC2 instances, and we've also started using SageMaker, and we think this might make our lives easier. We are now testing different built-in algorithms. We have started with linear learner. I think we will stay with that, but we are also testing others as well for specific criteria. As I said, currently 3 criteria, they are very challenging, so we have to come up with something, and we keep experimenting different algorithms for those. So what are the 3 learned lessons? Firstly, for your first release, don't try to find clients, try to find partners, because for machine learning and AI tools, you will need a lot of patience. So I use the word partner with the FMCG company and the telco, not the client. And currently we are keeping this free for the first 10 partners joining, and we will keep it free for them for 1 year. And Alice also came up with the term VIP customer. It was VIP customer, right? So Alice is working on a framework called VIP customer, and these 10 companies will always be our VIP customers. They are really valuable because they are sharing their data, they are being patient for us to create these reports and help them. I would call them partners rather than clients. This is the first learned lesson we had. Another one is, I already touched upon this, supervised learning duration. Do not underestimate, if you will use supervised learning, do not underestimate the workload it will bring, especially if it needs some domain expertise. If it is a kind of like choosing plants versus chairs, it is very easy. There are companies doing it with really low cost because it doesn't need any domain expertise. But if you need supervised learning with a requirement of a domain knowledge, then it is one of the most costly things that will happen in your project. And the last one, privacy and confidentiality. So our first two partners, one of them is a big telco, the other one is a global FMCG. They both asked this same question at the very beginning: security, privacy, what are you doing with the data? Where are you putting it? Is it secure? And this conversation was kept so long, I showed a file to them. This is how we keep the data, and it was all encrypted. And then they relaxed a bit because this was one of their main concerns. How is our data kept? Who can see it? Like, can your employees see our data? And privacy, confidentiality, security, it is very important if they are handing over the data to you. I think I tried to come up with common generic learned lessons that will most probably happen in all AI machine learning projects. But of course, as any startup, we had a lot more learned lessons and a lot more difficulties than these three. But I think these three are the commonalities among AI and machine learning. And I can get some questions now. And I said for the first 10, it is free to register. If you want to register, you can register from there. But you can't register now because you will need your JIRA API key.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Just, what's your opinion about it? The third point was confidentiality and security, etc. Do you think it's a reaction of the GDPR environment and being big corporations, or is just, I don't know, privacy?
Mainly GDPR. So GDPR made people aware of this reality. So GDPR had a huge impact on it. But I think they are right, because when you access the JIRA, you don't know what your employees are putting in there. So they might be attaching some confidential documents. They might be exposing some company roadmap information. So they are right about being worried about it. And as providers of this platform, we have to be really confident about the security and the encryption of that data. I fully support their view on that. I think it is more on the confidentiality than privacy, because we have B2B contracts with them, and they have employee contracts with their employees. In this way, we can process any name, surname, email address of these employees. So they are not much worried about that. They are more worried about the project data they have and how secure it is kept. Can anyone see that? And also, we heard some companies getting hacked. So if you get hacked and if they retrieve the files, will they be able to read the information? These are the kind of questions. So you have to be very strict in terms of security and privacy. Did this help?
Yes. I suppose part is there could be clients, customers in data, and they don't have a way to anonymize it when they give it to you. Okay, this is the data. Use it.
In terms of GDPR, making data anonymous is very difficult, because here what we are trying to do is, for example, know the number of interaction between these two users. And in order to do that, you have to give an ID. You don't need to know the name or email, but you have to give an ID. But as soon as you give an ID, then it gets in scope of GDPR. So that's why anonymization is very difficult, and even giving an ID to a person means personal information. It becomes almost impossible, at least for us, to anonymize the data.
Hi there. Two quick questions. The first one is, what type of volumes, data volumes, do you need to train your algorithm? Are we talking about hundreds of maybe projects, thousands, millions of records? And mind you, I struggle to picture the type of data that you'll be using.
Yeah.
So that's one, and related to that one is, what kind of outcomes are you getting? Like, what kind of interesting things your machine is recommending? How helpful are those things? So that's kind of the first question. And the second one is, I understand you're an agile specialist, right? So by now you probably know a lot about machine learning, but probably more than you did when you started all of these. How was your experience selecting a partner to help you choose the platform, the tools, the approach? Because it's not necessarily easy.
Yeah, it's not easy, but I've been leading agile transformation for the last 5-6 years, and until that time, not until that time, but for 6 years I've worked as a software developer, but not machine learning. So I worked as a full stack software developer for 6 years, so I had the background. And as I said, in our company, everyone does everything, but Fatih, who is my colleague, is a lot better than me when it comes to machine learning. But because we are very small, I had to learn and do stuff with him. He can't do everything alone. And it was very difficult, but I think we have an enormous set of tools which you can automate most of the things if you have like a certain level of development knowledge. If you are a software developer that used different programming languages, with the tools you have, like the Amazon SageMaker, your life is really easy when it comes to running algorithms. The difficult part is to know how to set the parameters in these algorithms and which one to use when. So for me, I think the difficulty wasn't implementing the algorithms, it was choosing which one to use for which criteria, with which data. I think this was more difficult. And this is where my colleague is helping. Because in order to make this decision, you have to know all of them. You have to know the weak points, what are they good for, what are they not good for. I think that's the difficult part, not the implementation of it.
The data amounts, like...
Oh, okay, data amounts, yeah. I put that slide on for that answer. So this is an example of a sprint. So, for example, in this sprint, there are 2, 4, 6 things to deliver. this is pretty low. It is usually like 10, what I've seen. And each sprint will have 10 lines of deliverables, let's say. And we assume that 20 lines of deliverables and all the data related with those would be sufficient, but it is not. So now we are looking at, we will need at least 60 lines of deliverables, and each of these 60 deliverables will have 42 features. So what we mean by that, 60 multiplied by 42, and then that's our plan right now. So it is not massive. We don't need millions of records, but the main problem is when you get a new client, you have to start over from the beginning because of the way they will use JIRA. They use it all different. So, for example, here Alice created this record and she delivered it herself. In some companies, this is the best practice they have. Whoever is going to work on something, they create it themselves. But in another company, it is always the product owner who is creating it, which is a very easy indication for us to find out who the product owner is and who is expecting the delivery. And then who is working on it is always in the assignee. So these are all small details that you need to consider when you get a client on board. So after doing this training, it doesn't mean that this will work for a new client coming on board. We will need that 60 records again with 42 features each. We need to label them again, send surveys again. Our algorithm might not work. We will need to find solutions for those. Time?
It's a quick question in terms of the features. Which of those features are the most relevant in terms of influencing success of your tool?
Okay. For example, how long did a story, user story, stay open? This is giving a big, very important indication of most of the criteria metrics. And this is another answer to your question, like what are the interesting things you found? We haven't thought that that would be that much of an impact in terms of everything, like team collaboration, product owner collaboration, delivery pace, quality. We realized that the time a user story kept open without any work done on it has a direct impact on almost all criteria. So this was an interesting fact for us. As an agile coach, I've never thought it would have that much an impact, because we say you have 2 weeks, you will deliver those. I don't care when you did it, when you started, but apparently it's not like that.